Hi, I'm Melissa Ahlgrim. I am the Director of Reading Sufficiency and Early Reading at the State Department of Education, and I was also, in my previous position, able to be on the standards writing team for the Oklahoma Academic Standards for ELA. This morning, we're going to talk about reading foundations, which is found in Standard 2. Most of our standards for ELA deal with comprehension, which is our overall goal for reading. However, the foundational skills deals primarily with reading acquisition, those skills that students need to be able to decode the words on the text. The foundational standard fits within the overall standards when you consider the model of the simple view of reading by Goff and Tumner. The simple view of reading states that word recognition times language comprehension equals reading comprehension. The word recognition part is what we're really addressing very heavily in the foundational standards. Hollis Scarborough went and took that model and expanded it when she developed her reading rope in 2002. And with the reading rope, we just take that simple view of reading and turn it on its side, and we see that within the word recognition part, we have skills such as phonological awareness, phonics, sight words. And then within the language comprehension part, we have things like vocabulary, background knowledge, verbal reasoning, genre, text structure. Those are all things that we find in standards 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. But in that word recognition part is where we are really focusing for this video. So when we talk about foundational skills within reading, we're really talking about 4 primary skills that are found there. First, we start with phonological awareness. Phonological awareness is working with the sounds of language. So being able to look at the specific sounds, breaking up a word into syllables, breaking up a word into phonemes or individual sounds. We know that this is a skill that has a lot of bang for its buck. It's very predictive of later reading success. We also know that students that struggle with word recognition generally have some very huge issues with phonological and specifically phonemic awareness of being able to manipulate the sounds within a word. In our standards, phonological awareness is really addressed in pre-K through first grade, with a statement in second, third, and fourth that this is a time to review those skills. Now, what we're finding through more recent research is that phonemic awareness, specifically phonemic manipulation, being able to move sounds around within a word, really needs to be extended in the upper grades, especially for struggling readers. So it's really important that we don't just drop that skill at the end of first grade, but that we continue to review and practice and work with that skill even in the older grades. So doing things like word chaining, say the word slip. Now say it without the s at the beginning. You have lip. Now put the s at the end of the word. You have lips. Being able to work with those sounds really activates some parts of the brain that strengthens those neurons to be able to work with words later on as they're being able to decode longer and multisyllabic words. So the second skill within foundational skills is print concepts. And print concepts starts with just being able to recognize that those marks on the page actually mean something, and that we have a directionality with our language, that we read from left to right and that we go from top to bottom, that there's a front of the book and a back of the book. And as we progress into second, third, and fourth grade, it becomes more into handwriting. How do we form those letters? And handwriting is an important part that does need to be intentionally taught. So in second and first grade, we're working on really forming the letters of print correctly. Third and fourth grade, we're moving into forming the letters in cursive correctly. So that tends to be forgotten often because it was in our standards and then out of our standards as we were shifting back and forth. But it is there for a reason, and we do know that the more students are aware of cursive, that it actually is strengthening those neurons that enable students to be able to read as well. So it's more than just about being able to sign a name on a check or reading historical documents. It really is wiring pathways in the brain that will help our students to be able to acquire reading skills. The third skill within the foundational standards is phonics or word study. This is something that really needs to be taught very explicitly, not just left up to chance. And there is a systematic way. There are skills that come here in a hierarchy. And so if you notice how the standards are written, the simpler skills come first, and the more complex skills come later on. And this does continue on through 4th grade because there is a lot of complexity to phonics and word study. It's more than just saying CVC words, CAT spells cat, but having to look at vowel teams, which is a huge focus in 2nd grade, and starting to look at how syllables divide a word, because whenever we're looking at how phonics works within a single syllable word applies also to the syllables within longer words, so that when students learn those skills for a single syllable word, they are now able to apply it to larger words to be able to decode them. So it's really important that students understand how syllables work and then the phonics skills within those syllables. So I've had several teachers say, well, we don't teach phonics after 1st grade or 2nd grade. And that's really where we're seeing a lot of issues with struggling readers, because a lot of times they just have not had sufficient phonics and word study instruction. And we really need to make sure that that's very explicit. We do not want to leave that up to random acts of instruction. We want to be very intentional about that instruction. Finally, the last skill within the standard is fluency. And fluency is generally a byproduct of the previous 3 skills. So if I have good phonemic awareness, if I have a good understanding of phonics rules and of print concepts, then I can read accurately with expression, and I can really lead to that understanding of comprehension. And so that's really what fluency is. It's not something we just practice on its own for the sake of fluency. It's something that we build towards. But fluency is a very highly predictive indicator of if a student is able to comprehend. Because when we know a student is reading fluently, that they're reading the words accurately, that they're using that expression, they're paying attention to the syntax of a sentence, all of that works into fluency. When a student is reading fluently, then it's very likely that they will be able to comprehend the words that they're reading as well. Because without that fluency, we don't have enough working memory to be able to gather and make sense of what we're reading. So that's why it's so important that we get those skills down in order to be able to work on our other skills dealing with comprehension. Now, you'll notice that Reading Foundations is a part of Standard 2, and there's 2 parts to Standard 2. There's our foundations, which we've just talked about, and there's also reading and writing processes. Dr. Julie Collins has filmed a short video on that section of Standard 2, but those work together in order to achieve the overall standard, which is to be able to read and comprehend increasingly complex literary and informational texts. Students have to be able to acquire the text to be able to decode the words on the page for that comprehension to happen, but they also have to be able to do the other parts in Standard 2 as well. So both parts work together to be able to achieve that standard. So one of the things that we want to make sure that people understand is if you have students who are struggling with reading, especially with accuracy, it's likely that you're going to want to spend some quality time with Standard 2, the foundational skills, because without that, the rest of it is only going to be able to be achieved orally. Students can work on all of the standards orally at any age, but they will not be able to work on them independently until they've mastered the skills found in the foundational skills.